The primary purpose of Innovative AAC Solutions, the podcast, is to educate and inform. The views expressed during all episodes are solely those of the individuals involved and do not constitute educational or medical advice. They are not necessarily the views of Special School District of St. Louis County. We are officially back. It is season 3 of Innovative AAC Solutions, the podcast. I'm Laura Hayes, along with my co-host.
I'm Cheryl Livingston.
And we are
for another year.
That's right. We got renewed. We're so excited to be back. We have so many. I've been excited about all of our interviewees so far, but I am so excited for the people that we have to bring you guys this year. It's going to be really fun, right, Cheryl?
Oh, we're branching out nationwide. I mean, it's just, and I personally have not had anybody question, why would I want to do that? You know, it's like, everybody's been, sure, I'll be a part of that. So I think, I don't know if they don't already know us, they learn us real quick, but everybody's been so positive and so supportive. So that's been really cool.
And I think, people really are blown away by what we are doing in this district when it comes to supporting assistive technology and supporting AAC. So I just keep up the great work. We are so excited to be your facilitators this year. We're so excited to bring you more information, more fun finds. So a little bit, we do the framework. We do a fun find every episode. We have an interviewee that we highlight. We do a resource, and then we also highlight an activity where you can use AAC. So that is the framework of how we do our episodes. And then I thought this year, Cheryl, we would do something even more fun. I thought we would do some giveaways.
Okay.
So
you've got gift cards to places in town?
Even better. I've got some things. We've got some AAC related supports that we are going to send you. And so it's pretty simple. I'm going to switch my background here real fast in each episode. And the first person to email Cheryl or myself, we will time it out if there's multiple people that get the right answer. But the first person to email us, we will send an AAC support, either tool or fun thing that you can do with your kids. The first one that I want to give away, Cheryl, is a calendar, since we're back to school.
Yes.
These calendars are fantastic resources. They have great ideas every single month, really in QR codes that you can find other ideas and activities. So we're going to send you guys an AAC calendar. For whoever can get this right. So I'm going to change my background to this. I'm hoping that you guys can all see that very easily. But the first person to message us and let us know where I'm at is going to get that prize. So let us know. Email us. We can't wait to hear from you. Switching it back now. And it's time for Fun Find, Cheryl. What do you have for us today?
All right. Well, of course, I'm always looking around. I'm always on social media, checking out stuff. And one popped up this week on Practical AAC. In fact, I think it was today's post, but I'm not going to go to that particular site. What I wanted to remind everybody is that there is a YouTube site called Life Skills 2, the number 2, Learn. Are you seeing that, Laura?
I see Life Skills to Learn.
Yeah.
The YouTube channel.
So this is their YouTube channel, and they've got all kinds of great videos. But I just, for the sake of the fact that we're all coming back, I searched. They have a search bar right here that you could just, within their site, search what kinds of video would you like to see. I just put it back to school. So I just want to remind everybody, and we'll put this link in our show notes, that there is a couple just real quick. This one I really loved, about back to school tips for AAC users. And it's talking to both teams, school teams, teachers, and parents. But then it's just some nice reminders. The other one is Let's Talk About Back to School. And it's geared more towards the students, like actually a little video that the parents or teams could be using with the students to kind of help them, think about what's going to be happening and how they could help maybe support. We could support them, or the students could even support themselves. This isn't AAC related. It's just general, but I think all of our kids would benefit from it. So I want to remind you that this is a great site, and those two videos, one's 1 minute and 41 seconds, and the other one's 3 minutes and 13 seconds, definitely worth your time, because it's going to give you a lot. And I think the kids would love to see them as well.
Oh, love it. Love it. Back to
Yes.
school. Mine is also back to school related, Cheryl. So I've been thinking about you classroom teachers. I've been thinking about you SLPs and all of your lists that I hope you are getting some supplies for your classrooms as they are much needed. But I found someone had shared this with me, and so I'm going to share my screen. Have you heard, Cheryl, of solid tempera paint? Have you heard about these quick sticks?
No,
So
no.
they're super cool. They kind of have the thickness of like a thick chapstick, but they're
Okay.
paint. And so
And when we talk about tempera paint, that's usually the little jars that you would have to put a brush in, right?
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Which is messy.
Right, but
Sorry.
they're quick sticks. So I'm just highlighting here on
Oh,
like all the
cool.
qualities about them. Like you can use them on any materials. They've even got an example with leaves, which I think is super wonderful and
Mhm.
great. But you don't need a whole smock. You don't need the water. You don't need the brushes. It dries in 90 seconds. Dries in 90 seconds, and it comes with all these different
Hmm.
colors. So I was super excited about that. And then I just wanted to remind everyone, so these are thicker, so they're going to be easier to hold and maneuver, but we can always also make sure this follows me, Cheryl, on my other tab. Do you see this new tab on the adapted holder?
Here it comes. Yes.
Yeah. So even if they can't hold the quick stick, we can get our OT friends. We can talk to Chris the Carpenter. We can actually go to the IRC because we have some adapted holders for markers. We can also use our friend PVC pipe, and we can support anyone who might have a harder time holding that and grasping that marker the paint, so that they can still access this same art activity. I just was really jazzed about that because what an easy way for us to offer some written expression, some scribbling,
Oh,
some art
yeah.
accessibility here.
Well, and I'm thinking just by the pictures you were showing of those paint, I'm gonna call it paint stick type of thing, the brightness of the colors and markers are great, but this seems like it would be even more, it would be easier for the student to attend to what that mark looks like because it's bolder and thicker and has just more substance. So I had no idea there was such a thing. I may take up painting now if I could, because I'm not about the mess, that's for sure. And no brushes to clean. Wow.
Well, and I had used
Cool.
paint daubers like for bingo with my kids in
Yeah.
the past, and even my kids at home, Cheryl, it does not dry quickly, and I
And
very
it's a
quickly was
runny
like,
consistency, right?
yes,
Yeah.
it bleeds
Yeah.
through. These will not bleed
Yeah.
through. So I think
Huh.
again was going to invest in them
Yeah.
myself. So I thought every classroom out there needed to hear about these.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
again, I love it. I love when people invent new things when it's like, wow, why didn't I think of that? Okay.
Right.
So now,
Yes, it's
cool.
perfect. So, speaking of things that people need in the classroom, you also mentioned to a YouTube channel. We wanted to just make
Mhm.
sure everyone knew that we are.
Did that happen this summer while we were
Did
off?
we are now
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
official
I was,
SSD YouTube channel?
my time frames now are like, what? Yeah, was I here? Was I there? Yes, officially. We have been asked to join the SSD YouTube channel. So what that means is if you just search SSD YouTube, they have a whole list of things that you can view. Well, we are now part of that list. So you can click on our site or our link, and that will then take you to the page that's dedicated just to our podcast, and you can subscribe. So when we upload something new, it's there waiting for you. You'll get, a little ding. And it's the previous 2 years, and now it's going to be this third year. So everything that we've ever done is there, easy for you to access, easy for you to watch or listen to. I always want to remind folks because they'll say something about, well, Cheryl, I don't have time to sit down and watch it. You don't have to watch it. It's better, of course, because we've got all these visuals. But if you just turn it on, I'm loving my Bluetooth to my car radio and all that stuff. I listen to podcasts driving now all the time. You can listen to us even if you can't see us. So I want you to make sure you take advantage of that. But that is going to be so nice for you to share out. You could send a link to somebody. It's much more, I say, easy, flexible access than, we still have our site and we'll still use our site, but this would be easy for you to get to. So I'm excited. I feel like we made the big time.
Well, and we wanted to make it accessible for you guys, A, to get the alerts, and B, to share it. So, we often get asked, I have new staff, I have new paraprofessionals, what can they do to be on top of it, to get up to speed? these are great resources. They are shorter pieces of little PDs specific to something that you might use in your classroom, whether it be an AAC system like Pod, or whether it be PECS, or any, like, you want a parent perspective, like anything, you share out that
All
episode.
kinds of information. Yeah. That's what I love about what we do, Laura, is we've covered such a wide range of things that it's always worth your time to listen, because there's going to be something there that you can find as helpful. It may not be the entire interview because that wasn't a topic that you personally work with, but there's something in there that it'll be a takeaway. So
yeah,
like
and we're
that.
still going to do the notes and the captions at the bottom, so they're accessible and you can go to specific parts of an episode that you want to highlight. And we'll still do the certificates. So when you complete an episode, let us know, or fill out the episode quiz that we have links for.
Yes.
And then you'll get a certificate so that you can have that on your PD for the year.
Yes.
So speaking of things that we need in the classroom, Cheryl, it would be great if all of our communication partners in the classroom had the skills that we think are the best skills out there to support our AAC users, right?
The skills and I want to say the comfort and the confidence.
Yes.
I think sometimes that's the huge thing that we're missing, is people don't feel confident. So yes, if you have awareness, you have knowledge, you'll have confidence.
Yes, couldn't agree more. So what did I do? I went out this summer and I interviewed Jill Senner and Matt Baud, who are some amazing minds and workers in the field who are working on helping communication partners in the classroom and at home. And they're doing it through a specific type of training. You may have heard of the training. It's called SMoRRES. It's an acronym that we will talk about in this interview. And we will talk about how it can support communication partners to better support AAC and communication. So without further ado, I'm going to lead into our interview with Jill Senner and Matt Baud. I am so excited today to welcome to Innovative AAC Solutions, the podcast, Jill Senner and Matt Baud. I can't thank you guys enough for coming on and sharing all your knowledge. We're going to dive in, but before we dive in, can you just tell our listeners a little bit about your backgrounds and kind of what took you down the road of AAC?
Sure. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having us. I'm Jill Senner, and I have been doing AAC for over 20 years, actually probably closer to 25. And, I started my career in dysphagia research, and it just turned out that all of the same kids who had difficulty swallowing required AAC. And I was very, very interested in that. So, fast forward 25 years, and we're still conducting research in AAC. I am also an adjunct professor at DePaul University, and I am the owner and director of Technology and Language Center. We are a pediatric tele-AAC clinic serving many states at this time.
Yeah, and I've been doing this, just hitting the 20-year mark now, and really kind of got my start because a certain professor at the university I went to kind of, linked me to a lot of AAC practicums, and then got to work somewhere. So Jill and I have been connected for a long time at this point. So for the last 20 years, I've been doing a lot of AAC. For the past 15, I've been an AT coordinator at Niles Township District for special education, where a lot of the stuff that we do at SMoRRES and so forth has kind of started with our research. And I also have my own AAC practice. So I've been doing this a lot. I get to do it in the home, which is really cool because my kids get the benefit from being here with my clients, and then an adjunct professor at St. Xavier University teaching the AAC classes.
So is that how you guys met? I don't think I know that story. Okay.
Yeah. We actually met through my first year grad class, my neuro class. Jill was it, and Jill assigned these different chapters, and I got the bliss symbols one, and that's kind of where it kind of hooked up, where she does a lot of AAC. It was something that I was thinking about, and just got a lot of experience from that point forward.
So if a listener is maybe younger or doesn't know what bliss symbols are, Matt, could you
Oh
just
man.
describe what is, in a nutshell, what did that project look like, and or what was
Oh,
it?
20 something years ago. This one, that was probably 22 years ago. Well, the chapter was more about talk about what it is, kind of how can it be used for the different populations, and bliss symbols, right? It's a set of symbols that can be combined to create multiple symbols.
But they're not the most intuitive or concrete symbols as far as looking at iconicity.
I think that on the iconicity continuum, I mean, I think that it wasn't really designed for that. It was really designed to be kind of a universal language that people could understand, even if you spoke different languages. So it was designed to be kind of more robust, but yes, more abstract.
Yeah, it was originally created for written communication, correct? For multiple languages so that everyone could communicate.
We don't talk as much about symbols. So that, I mean, I've already like identified like, oh, I would love to talk to you guys more about telepractice and private practice and all of these things. But what we really want to hone in on today is one thing that you guys kind of have coined and supported the last, gosh, has it been 5 or 6 years? I don't know. We've lost some years, I think, with COVID.
10 years, last 10 years. 10 years
Oh.
since we started our research. Yeah.
So kind of you coined the mnemonic SMoRRES, but really the idea behind the research that you guys continued from Kent Walsh and some other amazing researchers in the early 2000s, you guys came up with the SMoRRES mnemonic for a comprehensive communication partner instruction program. One that I very much admire, one that I did some research off of here for our school district. So I know that people are familiar with it, but if someone's not familiar with this mnemonic or the communication partner training that you guys have done and you're continuing to do, can you tell them a little bit about the background and just where you were, what you found out, and where you're going? That's a lot in a nutshell. So just start off with what it is.
So the SMoRRES mnemonic is the way that we operationally define partner augmented input or modeling on AAC devices. But it is, like you mentioned, just one small part of a larger communication partner instruction program. You know, when Matt and I got started, we would go into a school and we do a little workshop and, you know, maybe even had some hands-on elements. And we were like, yeah, we're hitting all the highlights about modeling AAC. And then, you know, we go back into the classroom in a month and we're like, nobody's using it. And so we really started delving into the research in best practices in adult education. And, you know, it turns out we need to have multiple training elements, and many of those training elements have to occur right inside the classroom or the home. And so that's how we kind of discovered Kent Walsh and McNaughton's 8-step instructional program. But step 4 of that program is verbal practice. And so verbal practice basically requires participants to verbally rehearse, right? We know that that's a way to help remember things, a mnemonic or a memory aid, so that they have quick access to the SMoRRES ingredients. You know, really each letter of the SMoRRES mnemonic is an ingredient to successful modeling. And each one of them is evidence-based on their own, right? So E for expand, for example, is a language strategy that we're probably all familiar with, build up or recasting. And so that's kind of how that came about.
You weren't just like eating s'mores one day. You came up with the strategy. You decided to build them together to create this mnemonic. So we talked about the E. What do the rest of the letters stand for if someone's not familiar with it?
Yeah, so the first S is for that slow rate, right? Making sure that you talk simultaneously and slowly speak in a manner so that that child can process, can also see where some of those words are on the communication system. The MO is for modeling. And usually we always tell people that's kind of the heart and the soul of the s'mores, but we usually break it down into self-talk and parallel talk. So that idea of self-talk is what I'm thinking, what I'm seeing, what I'm doing, and using the communication system to communicate with that child. So I always tell people, I love snack time too, sometimes, or cooking, because I get to talk about what I'm doing. So I'm going to eat some of the crackers and bring some of that language in there. That parallel talk is, what that child is seeing, what they're hearing, what they're doing, what they might be thinking, and giving that language. And Jill always talks it this way, the color commentator of what's going on with that child and what they're doing. That first R is for respect and reflect. And that's that idea that a lot of our kids use so many different modalities to communicate, or whether it's sign, gestures, they have a lot of verbal speech or approximation. But instead of, saying, tell me on your talker, which, we have heard and still do at times, we respect that modality, we respect that they sign more, and that we reflect that on a model on their communication system.
Yep. Love it.
Oh, am I going to take over the rest of the
lesson? Yeah,
lesson?
might as well break them up.
Like, take it away. Take it away. Oh my gosh, respect and reflect. And then the second R, we know that SMoRRES really doesn't have 2 R's, but we needed one for ours. The second R is for repeat. In other words, repetition or focused stimulation. So we know Gail Van Tatenhove has some great research showing that some of our AAC communicators may need up to 100 models to be able to, of us just showing them before they even say the word themselves. So that's where that repetition comes in. E, I already mentioned, is for expansion. So recasting, build on. If you model something that's a single word, or if the child says something that's a single word, always be modeling 1 to 2 words beyond that. And the last S is perhaps the most important and perhaps the most difficult for new modelers, and that is stop. Let your student have a turn.
It's so hard.
We know that modeling is important, but the reason why we're modeling is so that our students will use their devices more. And so we need to create those communicative opportunities. And that's what expect and pausing does.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the stop is also important because when we're thinking about just that initiation piece, right, and not being just a responder within our communication interaction, so many times that's I think what the expectation is going in, that I'll model and then you say something, and I'm giving that 4-to-1 or 6-to-1 ratio of like just give the input, like the initiation will come, especially if you have motivation and you're using language across context. It's just that stop, especially as an SLP. Like my SLP is like, oh, in the recording piece, I'm sure you guys we can talk about that in a second, but as far as where you guys have pulled research and given feedback within your trainings, recording can be so helpful because you can go back at a later time and go, oh my gosh, I had no idea how much I was jumping in and prompting or taking over.
I mean, a lot of times, one of the coaching videos that we show in our training is a parent who I say, what do you think about pausing more, or something like that? And he said, I thought that's what I was doing. Right? A lot of times we're not really aware of the things that we do. I still catch myself 25 years later on videotape doing things with kids, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you gestured and I missed it, or whatever it is that I'm noticing. And I'm thinking, okay, next time, I'm going to learn from this. And so that is really incredibly important.
When we instill all of these great values and we support communication partners, adults in the classroom, what does that give us? What are the outcomes when we do these things?
Let me start, and then I'll let Matt talk about the results. But let me start by talking about untrained communication partners, because there's a preponderance of evidence that shows that untrained communication partners, whether it is school staff, whether it is parents, whether it is peers, pretty much everybody in an AAC communicator's life will tend to dominate the topic of conversation, dominate conversational turns, be really directive in how they're interacting with an individual who uses AAC or who has difficulty communicating prior to getting an AAC device. And so we see a lot of those things, like, if you want more, tell me more. And it's just a natural way of compensating for a child who has difficulty communicating. It across the board. We're not being judgmental about this, but what we know is that those habits, if you will, are not conducive to encouraging language development in an augmented communicator. So some of the results that we've done 2 different studies so far, and we just started recruiting subjects for our TALA AAC study last week. I mean, literally.
I just saw your post.
Last Wednesday, Thursday.
We got IRB. Yeah. So if you guys have any students who, you think families would benefit, please send them our way. But Matt, you want to start with the school staff instruction study? That was our first study that we did. That article came out in 2017.
Yeah, right. I mean, what we know, like, just from school staff, and I think this is where it's like some of it came from, is that so much of us in the school is about the data of that student. And really, when we step back, we looked at, all right, what are the interventions that we're providing for the student? That's fine, but we looked at more of knowing what the literature told us, that communication partner training is an intervention that we should target, because then we have also, because of the training that we do for our communication partners, that will have positive outcomes for the students using devices. So, and that's something we've seen across the board with our studies and as other studies, right? So when we look at ours and we're training the communication partners, we saw an increase of modeling by the communication partners. Pretty much dramatically between pre-test and post-test, and looking at that baseline. And then, of course, the positive outcome that we saw with the child using it, we saw more independent communication, which was a big thing for him, because when we look back at baseline, the communication partners were doing a ton of prompting, gestural, physical, verbal prompting, and that's where we saw an increase with a lot of our subject in that study. So, and then when you look at other studies with the schools too, is the same thing, right? You see an increase of communication turns, you see an increase of some MLU. So there are a lot of multiple benefits, and something that's been ingrained into me and my school district is about interventions. But when we write goals, we're targeting interventions when we're writing that goal. Like, all right, so if I'm writing this goal, I have to think about what's going to be my evidence-based practice to reach that goal. And, a lot of it now has become, all right, we got that. It's not just about that kid. It's like, all right, if we're going to get that kid to have increased frequency, we have to look at training the partner. So it's been that beneficial. And again, the research that we've done have shown that.
And I love that point, because even when we think about goal writing and like evidence-based practice, one of the things you guys had shared was, and this makes sense, but it is almost mind-blowing, that if you understand the theory and the science and you understand best practices, there's a gap. There's still a major gap between that and the policy and practice of that being implemented. And you guys had shared that the research practice averages 17 years.
Yes.
That's a long time.
That's just the average. That's just the average, right? So if you look at the original Ken Walsh McNaughton study, 2005, that's right. Okay. So we're there, and that's still not the norm. Most trainings still in schools consist of the one-day workshop, the one-day in-service. And so really, and we've been talking about this, multiple training elements, including hands-on practice with the device, strategy descriptions, strategy demonstrations are all important, but the real secret sauce here is coaching, right? So school staff need this job embedded professional development opportunity with a coach in the classroom to be able to use what they learned in an in-service and actually be able to integrate it with the other skills that they already know. And so that piece of all of this research is just so critical, and it's still really not happening. And that also reminds me of the importance of this kind of implementation fidelity, right? So implementation fidelity is implementing a program or an intervention as intended. And so what we know is that not only is there this real gap, but a lot of times people don't implement interventions as they're intended. So, for example, we get people sending pictures of classrooms in California. They've got a SMoRRES poster on the wall, but what people don't realize is that it's not just the mnemonic. It's you can't just give people the mnemonic and say do this and now you're good. Can't just hang a poster and say now you're good. Can't just watch a webinar and say now you're good. A huge component of the training is coaching. and implementation in the natural environment for families as well, whether we zoom into the home or whether we're physically in the house. And as far as our parent research, we did find, again, all of our parents reported increased comfort levels and familiarity with using the augmentative communication device. They reported using it more at home. They all increased their modeling pre-test and post-test. And they, that the children had gains as well in that they used more unique words, right? Maybe the kids had these words in their vocabulary, maybe they didn't, but the end result was that now they knew where to find them on the communication device. So lots and lots of benefits from communication partner training. However, how we teach is as important as what we teach.
Absolutely. And I love that you guys are doing the research now on the home environment side, because when we kind of dove into this within the district, that was one of the gaps that we felt like was, even though the capacity was being built. I kind of want to make a note here, because I think that sometimes people get overwhelmed by coaching, thinking, well, if I give coaching for this one student, then I have to give it for every single student. But at least what I find, and have found and continue to find, is that there is a capacity level built. Once they synthesize it for that student, then they can continue to do that and be a great communication partner model for other people coming in. Because we do have, one of the pitfalls is that we have turnover, and we can't be everywhere all at once. And so making sure, at least with the buildings that I've had, we've built that capacity so new people that are onboarded can come in and see the true skills being modeled in the classroom. Yeah.
And I just really quickly want to clarify, because I know Matt has some thoughts on capacity building, but I did want to clarify. So we already did one parent ed study, and that was actually published in 2019. And for anybody who's interested, anybody who kind of geeks out over the research like I do and wants to get down and dirty into the subjects and methodology, that article is available as a free resource on our website, on TALCAAC.com. Sorry, TALCAAC.com. Said that a little fast. And so if you go to the SMoRRES page, you'll find that research article. What we're now looking at is, does it also work via telehealth? Because we've been doing it in person. And now the past few years, we've shifted to kind of doing more telehealth. And so do we have the same level of effectiveness when we do it by telehealth? So Matt, building capacity.
Yeah, and I think you're right, Lori, like talking about the pitfalls and staff turnaround. That's definitely the biggest barrier we run into. And I think the years for us with the capacity changes every so often, where we start getting a good law, where we had actually a few different coaches, the coach components, where we had different people doing it. And then as staff turned around and COVID hit and different things, like we had such an influx of change that it was like, we almost had to start almost from ground zero in a weird way. Like, even though the culture of partner augmented input and SMoRRES is built into our district, there were so many new staff within every single classroom, whether it was paraprofessionals or related staff. Like the last couple of years, it's like 3 or 4 new SLPs. Is that it's like, all right, we have to keep on, even when capacity gets built, we have to look at how can we keep increasing it, because things will happen like staff turnaround or a number of different cases. And I think, we have some ways of trying to build that upon us and helping. Like, we have like the DVD, or for us in Illinois and a few other states, Infinitec is a great resource for the videos. And so our videos on there. And so we can actually have new staff watch for that self-paced learning, where they can learn about the what, the why, the how of SMoRRES and PAI, and even do some of the hands-on practice component before we get into the coaching. But that's definitely one of the pitfalls. And some of it still is that staff want to skip steps. I think like the coaching model has gotten such a good influx over the last like 5 or 6 years. And I think Jill and I have talked about, like, we get outside the speech world. We love looking into different disciplines and how they do different workshops and where some of their research is gaining us. And so now sometimes, like, you just come in and coach me. But like Jill really stressed earlier, it's all those training elements. And even when I talk to other districts, they're like, oh, we coach. It's like that flyby coaching. And yes, I do that sometimes because I'm in a classroom. I'll take advantage of that time. But I also know big picture, like the long-term outcome is that I really need those multiple training. I need to do that in-service component. I need to do some practice outside the classroom and then get into that. But like you talked about too earlier, the video, like video is a huge piece of all of this training. Like having that baseline for people to watch themselves is critical.
And I just want to throw in too, like, I think there are lots of different coaching models out there. I want to make sure that people understand that we are talking about in vivo coaching. We're talking about side-by-side coaching. We're talking about going into that actual classroom, going into that home, whether it be remotely or whether it be physically in your body, because there is some evidence to suggest that that's more effective than sort of a collaborative, conversation that you have after the fact, that a lot of this needs to be occurring actually in the natural environment.
I think that's a great point, because you mentioned, there are different models out there, and just there are a lot of people that are doing collaborative teaming, and it is different than that. We'll make sure to share those notes and the articles that you guys mentioned in the show notes as well, so everyone has resources so they can geek out like us. One of the big things, and you probably get this question a lot, but one of the big things that I hear is, well, what happens if there's no buy-in? Like, they don't buy in, or someone who's resistant to change. Where do you start with someone like that?
Yeah, I mean, usually when we're going into a district, one of the first things that we might want to do is a pilot classroom and find a team that really is on board with it. I mean, we've had this happen several times. That's not going to work in our school. That's not going to work in our district. And so it's not going to work with our students. Our staff aren't going to do it. And what we end up doing is starting with a pilot classroom with staff that are super excited about the program. And that way we, again, start kind of demonstrating, well, oh my gosh, it does have an impact in their school. We always are collecting data, no matter where we're implementing. We're collecting data on staff and we're collecting data on the student. And so we can actually document changes and we can document improvements. And, it's kind of contagious, when the teacher who's in the program is in the lunchroom. Go ahead, Matt.
No, I agree 100%. It's a contagious component, right? I think that's huge, because they always say like, oh my gosh, it's working. I think another part of the buy-in, even when we don't have buy-in, is about administration. Because, a power of the top down does have some influence, because we're all evaluated and knowing that component. So, like within our district, the expectation is like they have walkthrough tools that, that they should be doing some type of modeling. So at least, even though it might not be what we want, the conversations are started. But then I think another piece about the buy-in, if you're in a district, you can have, I think it's different when you have outsiders come in or people in districts, and I've done it both ways. If it's my district, I really know the teachers who might be more resistant. And so I look at it more as like, I'm going to take the opportunity just to build a relationship with that person, knowing that, I might not get it in the first semester. It might be towards the end, but that's okay for me. It's like, I'll sit there, hang out. I will go above and beyond to help little things to make them feel good, because that's the piece where they'll let me come into them and do it. And so I think that's a big part of it.
And coaching really is relationship building, right? I mean, that's a huge, huge piece. It's a relationship between equals.
Yep. Couldn't agree more. I think all of those are amazing points. And I think, that resistance piece of how can you make their job a little bit easier, build that relationship at the same time, show them that doing these things, even though it's front loaded, will make things easier in the long run and improve their overall interaction with their students or with their child or whoever you're working with.
And I want to make clear that this program does not require you to change what's happening in your classroom. I mean, I think that was one of the critical pieces when we looked. I mean, there are so many programs that came off of the Kent Walsh and McNaughton, all those different spinoffs, right? I mean, Sarah Douglas has a modeler by Sam Senner. A number of people have been working with the Impact program, but we looked at those, and many of them are focused on storybook reading specifically, and we're like, we know that doesn't happen in every classroom, especially as we get into the older grades. And so how can we help people push this into what they're already doing. You know, we don't want to make extra work for anybody. And we know that the closer the practice is to what you're actually doing in the classroom, in this case, it's actually what you're doing in the classroom, the more likely you are to utilize it.
Absolutely. You guys have mentioned so many resources, so I know, and we'll share a bunch of them in the show notes so people can dive deeper. But is there anything you feel like we haven't highlighted where I know you guys just presented at AAC in the cloud? Like, is there any other resources we haven't touched on where if someone's like, I love this, this is exactly where I need to be and where I want to go and take other people, any other resources you can think of?
Oh, we have lots of free resources on the Technology and Language Center website, starting with a lot of archived webinars, things that we've done in the past around SMoRRES. So you can go to the free resources page and check those out. We also have partner augmented input handouts and posters. Our handouts are both in English and in Spanish for those of you who are working with bilingual students. We have that available, but yeah, we have lots and lots of free resources that are available right on our website. Perfect.
Well, we'll make sure that that gets out there because you guys have been so generous with your time and resources. I know it's helped so many people that I support and myself. So thank you for that. So as we wrap up, we always ask our interviewees about their favorite AAC moment so far. So we've talked a lot about communication partners. So if there's something related to that you can think of, feel free. But if there is a special AAC moment in your heart, I would love to know, and I'm sure our listeners would love to know too.
Yeah, I mean, I think for one family, I mean, obviously, I mean, there's so many, it's the little victories. This one family was struggling to get an appropriate communication device and then finally got training. And I heard back from them recently that they were so excited. Their daughter was telling them what she wanted to wear to school. And, you know, I think about that, right? It's those little victories, but they make such a difference in the lives of AAC communicators and their families.
There's so many. I think most of them are those little ones where I get those text messages or the emails from staff or parents, and they're just showing me the videos of the kids doing the device themselves, or the highlights when an administrator goes, hey, look so you know, like look what's happening. And I think that's probably the best when it comes to training. And one of the stories that are most relevant just happened this weekend. I do my private practice out of my house. So a lot of times my kids are around, like same times, like running around. Sometimes they leave the house, but this time I have a new little client that's the same age as my daughter. So 6 and 7. And just having her engage in the session is a reminder that, you know what, it's really beneficial to teach all partners, you know, not just the teachers, and knowing what the literature talks about with adult dominated kind of things. Looking at the peers, and the engagement was awesome with somebody that had some training by her dad about how to model and pause, and just the back and forth was pretty cool to watch. Just doing simple things like bubbles and reading books. It was great.
Oh, that's so great. And I love like just the idea that peers are such a great example of what we can, you know, look to and use as our resources as well, and make that magic happen for anyone that's using AAC. Yeah. Well, it has been wonderful. I can't thank you guys enough for your time, your resources, for innovative AAC solutions. I'm Laura Hayes, and I just can't thank Jill and Matt enough. You guys have been wonderful. Thanks for coming on today.
Thanks for having
Laura.
us.
Hi guys, it's Cheryl. I wanted to give you a quick tour of the TALC website. So it's TALCAAC.com, and we're looking at the add-on social pages. Over the last few years, they have been creating free downloadable pages, and it's multiple pages per system that you can have access to and add to a student's existing program. The choices that we have on this particular time is TD Snap, which is they have the 6x6 configuration. We have Cough Drop Quick Course 60. We have WordPower on Touch Chat and or NovaChat devices. And we have WordPower on a PRC Accent device with New Voice. So for today, I downloaded the pages for Word Power on TouchChat, and I am going to show you the 42 basic. I also want you to know that there's a video tutorial. There's a link right here that you can click on, and it will actually walk you through how to go about putting this all together. So for right now, I'm going to take you to my chat editor, which is that free software that Sotelo offers, and you can have editing and demo software on your PC. So I've got that on, I've got the pages loaded, and we're going to do a little exploring. So I'm going to click on social, and we've always had social pages. And this is more the greetings and, quick hit kind of things that somebody, would easily have access to. But we've got more now, thanks to the TALC website. We have closers. So we can say things like, see you later, alligator. Or I can say, talk to you soon. I have to get going. So I'm going to go back to social. Now I have maintainers, and they have grouped these according to positives. So that's cool. I like that. Wow. Negatives are in the red. I don't want to. I'm sorry. Too bad. You're wrong. And then the browns are interjections, things that you might, have easy access to, quick pop-ups, whatever. Come on, you really? And then, uh-oh. So I'm going to go back to home, and I'm going to clear my text box. Now I go to social, and I'm going to talk about regulation. So maybe the student that you're supporting, it would greatly benefit from having a chance to tell people what's needed, what that student needs to help them regulate. Need a break, leave me alone, go away. I want to go on the swing, and then all kinds of options of things, spaces you could add to. Maybe it's thirsty, and maybe it's hungry. All right, back to social. And what if they want to ask a question? What are you doing later? What happened next? Do you want to play? Okay. And then we're going to go back to social, and we're going to do some repairs. So if we've had a communication breakdown, what kinds of things might help? Something like, let me show you a picture. Ask me a yes and no question. You're way off. I made a mistake. Or maybe they need to tell you to add a word to their device. Now we're looking at manners. So, and everybody appreciates somebody who's using good manners. So I'm sorry, excuse me, no problem, you're welcome, bless you, it was an accident. And then we have the personal page, which we've had. They've just again added a little bit more to it. We also have the I'm. So the quickies. I'm hungry, thirsty, I'm tired, I'm sick, I'm uncomfortable, I'm going. And then we can do the phone. So if we're talking on the telephone, maybe we need some quick messages for that. May I talk to, call me back at, have the number already programmed in. And we can share some news. So the device, the system has always offered recording messages, sharing messages, but I like to have, to get something started, we can say, I have a funny story to tell you. You know what I did? Guess what? So those are wonderful ways to initiate. All right, so the idea being it's the same basic program, everything that you already know. We're just adding more, and we're hoping that by offering more and helping our students to know where things are organized, they will have a lot more to say quickly, easily, and in a very social, exchanging, connecting kind of way. So I wanted to give you some more information about the TALC website, TALC. AAC.com, and the free resources they offer. In order to get access to the free resources, you do need to sign up for their newsletter, and they will then give you a password to access these different handouts and materials. So when you go at the top of their website products, there's free resources. So that's where I am right now. So they've got all kinds of different handouts that would be very helpful to share with teams and families. I'm going to click on this tool for analysis of language and communication, and it's a language sampling tool for multimodal communicators. So these are our kids. These are how we can help recognize and share information about how our kids are communicating in all kinds of ways. And it will give us a chance to use terminology that will be able to, convey to each other easily, what's going on. So I like this. I'm going to put this into practice with all the teams that I'm supporting so that we could move further into helping our kids. Another thing that we have here is there's use of SMoRRES. So it's like a little poster that helps you to remember what each of the letters stand for. And I'm also going to go down. I did a video on social pages, so check that out. And then the index of augmentative speech comprehensibility in children. So we've talked about this at other times that we've shared information. What it is it gives you a chance to have materials that we would show to a student, and you have your choice of PCS, symbol sticks, and then you can have the student name them, talk about them, and then have somebody else listen to it. So this is something you would record, and they can then give you feedback on how intelligible that student's speech was. So again, it's a download. And like I said, symbol sticks or PCS. So if I go to the picture set with PCS, then there's different modes of transportation, but the student would then be naming them or pointing or somehow giving you feedback. And that's what we're looking at. And how intelligible was that to an unfamiliar listener? And then what can we do to help with their speech intelligibility? There's different videos that they have here. A parent's guide to augmentative and alternative communication assessment, chat with me, pragmatic skills. So tons and tons of helpful information that we're encouraging you to go check out and do some exploring.
Hey guys, for innovative activity this week, I cannot tell you how excited I am to show you, if I can fit it in the screen, the Machines in Motion set. It's so big. It's actually not that big. It just doesn't fit in my screen very well, but it's the Machines in Motion building set from Learning Resources, and it's a STEM product. But let me tell you all the reasons why I think this is an amazing, it's a fine motor activity, yes, but it's an amazing language activity. And here's why. It comes with all these pieces. So many pieces of different colors. We've got the cog wheels. We've got everything that comes together. We've also got the instructions for how to build at least 5 different items. There's a couple more pictures of options on the back. So up to 7 visuals for what we can put together with instructions. But the possibilities for imagination and building whatever your heart's desire is endless, right? Think of Legos. These are great. They're pretty big pieces. There's a few connectors that are smaller, but overall those attach to things. So it says for 5 and up. Depending upon your student's interest level, you might shift that age range a little bit. But again, language activities, we could target colors, we could talk about size, big and little. We could build the different shapes up so that we could be working on directing others' actions as well. So build it up, put it on, get more, make it bigger, right? I put it on, you put it on. Where's the piece that we need? We could ask questions, right? What is it? Let's talk about it. We could describe what we're doing and what we think it might look like. So I really, really like this activity because it's a great motivator, right? It could go up for much higher than 5, depending upon what you're building. You could build like a replica of something and then have that be your carryover plan throughout your week. So there's one of these items that's a bulldozer type item that we could have it move for like a transportation or a construction thing. So if we were doing a construction theme, that might be an option. There's all different, there's propellers on here. So we could talk about things that fly, things that don't, heavy, light, things of that nature. So lots and lots of descriptive vocabulary. I just can't say enough good things about this machines in motion building set or any construction set, even if you had like Duplos or Legos or something that you're building. Those are all great ideas that you can just tackle with your students. So check this out. It's in the IRC machines in motion building set from Learning Resources.
Oh, Laura, I learned so much. And I have heard them speak several times. So it never gets old. It's never redundant. It's always a good reminder.
They're such a great tag team too. I love the way that they explain things. I think they're doing great things in the field and in the field of education and really trying to come at it from a different angle, supporting that carryover piece, which we know is huge, supporting parents, and just, offering those resources and doing it in a way that's digestible.
Yeah. And people will, like I said, the acronym SMoRRES, it definitely something that you can hang on to and help you to remember. So that's helpful.
Yeah. So we'll make sure all those resources and, if you want to post something in your classroom, they have great resources on their website, as we've highlighted on TALC. And so just please tap into those resources. And we hope that the interview helps you feel more comfortable and confident as a communication partner and just gives a positive AAC culture and supports your students in the classroom.
And it's always a good time to talk about this, but beginning of the school year, let's start fresh. Let's start with a different outlook, a different attitude. Let's not make communication hard. Let's make it easy, and let's make it something that the connection you as professionals and parents have with those kiddos they're communicating with you all day, all kinds of ways, and we need to be open to that. So I love the fact that if we kind of help our minds think in a way that's going to be easy and fun and enjoyable, the kids are going to just, they're going to rise to the occasion.
Absolutely. And I think we can do it. And we have way more information to share with you this year. We can't wait to share it with you. But for now, have a great week. Have a great weekend. And we will catch you on the next episode in a few weeks for Innovative AAC Solutions. I'm Laura Hayes.
And I'm Cheryl Livingston.
We'll see you next time.